Hi everybody, welcome to our session, Discover the latest capabilities of ABAP Cloud in action. On behalf of the ABAP platform team, I would like to welcome you to this session. My name is Volker Drees. I was supposed to showcase this session together with my colleague Marcel Hermanns. Unfortunately, Marcel is on sick leave, so all the best, Marcel, get well soon. And together with my colleagues, we are presenting this session in the background, answering your questions. There is Daniela and Christina. They will take care about the questions that are coming in. And at the end of the session, we can also show I can take some questions live. They will pass them on to me. So, ABAP Cloud in action. So what is ABAP Cloud? ABAP Cloud is the development model to build cloud-ready business applications, services, as well as extensions. It's part of the SAP Business Technology Platform, SAP BTP. We also call it Steampunk, the ABAP environment there, as well as contained in SAP S/4HANA. It works in the public as well as in the private cloud and is also available, and that's very important, also on-premise. That makes sure or allows you to even on-premise use the ABAP Cloud development model. So what does it mean in detail? If we look at the ABAP Cloud map, we start from the bottom where the data resides in the SAP HANA database, and there we have on top of it the domain-specific implementation. That means we are following a model-driven approach here where your business logic and your modeling takes place. For the modeling aspect, we use the core data services and use the ABAP for the transactionally enabled processing. As if it comes to the UI exposure or the UI services, we allow you, or we offer the OData protocol to be used, mainly to be used in the SAP Fiori apps, as well as allowed to use and consume the services, the UI services via analytical clients using the INA protocol, which stands for Information Access. The ABAP Cloud also covers or allows to make use of integration services, or not to make use. That comes in a second, to expose services for integration services use cases. That means you can expose not only your data as via the OData protocol, but you can also expose it via HTTP, RFC, SQL service binding, and so on. That allows you to to implement machine-to-machine scenarios, so that you can basically build integration scenarios with these services. On the consumption side, and that's here at the bottom, we have the integration services as well, and that's the other side. That means that you can consume these services by the OData protocol, SOAP services, and so on, in order to consume services and set up environments and scenarios, for instance, in a side-by-side extension. Parallel to that, we have the reuse services and libraries. So, for instance, SAP Workflow, Job Management, Output Management, XCO, and so on. In addition, we have built-in qualities that come into play. So the cloud readiness is covered here. Extensibility is very important, security, and so on. We have lifecycle management ensured as well, Git-based management, GCTS, transport management, and ABAP Git. On the tooling side, we have the ABAP development tools, ADT, that offer you to design everything using Eclipse. We have the Business Application Studio as well as Visual Studio Code as development environments where you then can build, for instance, the Fiori applications. And key user and monitoring tools as well. So, if we now look at specific UI services and what is actually new in the scenario for SAP Fiori Cloud, we have new features here. Start from the bottom with side effect modeling that is already available for quite some time. The Feature Showcase app that was implemented by our colleague Jesse, which is also very frequently used, and many people make use of that because it demonstrates the capabilities that you have in order to design Fiori apps with specific use cases like drop-down boxes, value helps, and so on, and how those are implemented. As per the demo part, we have I prepared a tree view for hierarchical data to be displayed. It's a read-only use case, and that's what I will demo now. At the bottom, what you also see here is links to the roadmap information filtered on the respective product that allows you to check for the roadmap information and see the features and capabilities that we have shipped already, and for more important, which are about to be shipped and planned to be shipped soon, so that you can get an information about it, what will come soon. So we start with the first demo, which is the tree view. It's a read-only scenario, so let me quickly change my screen. It takes a second here. I jump into the ABAP development tools in Eclipse. I have prepared a little example. We start from at the bottom, sorry, not here. We start at the database table, where we have some data, which is quite easy. Let me make this a little bigger, that you see it better. We have an employee table. The employee consists of a few fields, and important for a hierarchy structure is the linkage to a manager. Let me quickly preview this. So you see I have the employee number, and the employee has a dedicated manager, and this together then makes up a can make up a hierarchy. And how is this basically done? That's what you see here. If we look into the definition, we see here on the CDS view, where the modeling is happening, we see that it's a regular CDS view where we have an association many to one, and that is the special one here. So it's a self-association that is being used here, and that is then exposing these fields. And next to this one, we have the actual hierarchy CDS definition, which then brings in the hierarchy that is then with the query pushed down to the HANA database and executed there. Yeah, so we see here that it uses this source, this CDS view that is specified, and points to the corresponding association that is used in order to make this a hierarchy. And then on top of it, you have a regular projection view that defines or specifies an annotation pointing to this hierarchy that is being specified. And then, as a regular straightforward way, you just expose this via service definition and a service binding, and then inside the service binding we can just run this, and we see that the hierarchy comes up, and we can press go, and then we have a little hierarchy on the first, sorry, not this one, the first node. We can then expand and just drill down and so on. And we also have a little filtering here. I can just enter name Peter, and then it is filtered, and we see, I can also expand all, then we see that we have only the Peter entries here. Of course, the steps in between to this level are also listed here, so this count 8 refers to the 8 hits of Peter. Yeah? So this works quite well. And what you can also do is you can do an Excel export that works also out of the box. So let me quickly open this here, and then you see that I can no, come on. So then you have this data exported as an Excel, and you can even here expand and collapse it as you are able to do it in the Fiori application. Yeah, so then quickly we'll close this, and then we move on with the slides. So I will not go into full screen mode, just stay here. The next one is the next big thing we are working on is the collaborative draft. This one I will now continue with the demo. It has been prepared here. Collaborative draft means you all know the regular capabilities of working with draft. So if an application is a bit more complex than just having 2 or 3 input fields, the usage of draft is quite recommended. And draft is widely used already, and that's the recommended pattern for an application. But collaborative draft is something new, so this means that you can really cooperatively work on a single instance together with a colleague. And how does this work? It requires to be deployed in a launchpad, so therefore this has a little technical dependency here, but if it runs in a launchpad, then you can invite people, and I could now just, Hermanns, to spell it correct, I could invite Marcel here, although he's not around, and by this I could invite people, and he would then get a notification, and since I'm now on my own, I will just simulate this here with duplicating the screen, and then just kind of, work on this on my own. This means now I work in two screens on this single instance, and as you can already see, the cursor blinks here in this first field, and this is now blocked in that other screen. So simulating two users, I can even be more users, multiple, as many as you want. And if I'm now change anything in one of the fields, so one user changes it, and you know this pattern from, for instance, Office applications, that a certain user is editing a cell or so, then this gets locked, and you see that little characters here indicating that this person is editing. And once I leave the field, then also that other screen gets updated. Yeah? And this also even works with side effects. So you see these available seats here. So it's a little cinema application that the colleagues have prepared here. And if I update this, then not only the available seats here is updated on the header level with the side effects, but also on that other person screen. And even if I create new instances, you see that this is reflected here as well. Yeah, so this is quite fancy, and with the collaborative draft, you are quite flexible in implementing applications in a way that people can cooperatively work on a single document. And if one saves it and if everything goes well, I can say, yep, go ahead. Okay, there was a little error. Okay, no, try that again. And then, I see that mine was saved, and the other person gets a message saying that, okay, the person has saved and activated the draft. Okay, that's it by the collaborative draft. I will now go on with this slide here. So as said, that is one of the features to come. Next to that, and we'll not demo it today, draft scope is also very important. That means multiple business objects participating in a single business transaction. For example, reuse components are very important in this regards. For instance, the notes component, and that will also come soon. And in the future, we also work on analytical table, WebSockets, and so on. By the way, the collaborative draft also makes use of WebSockets integration and ABAP push channel integration, but that works then under the hood. And this one here mentioned for future usage is then, of course, for customers in the cloud environment. Okay, then next scenario, UI services analytical clients. Very briefly, we already support SAP Analytics Cloud, SAC. The next thing, and here I refer to the session that Andreas Riel and Niloufar Floatcutter are going to present, the multidimensional reporting based on SAP Fiori, which is here the next big thing to come, and they will demo it in detail, and there you can have a look at it. And again, at the bottom you see the links, and so you can filter on the roadmap per product, and there you get further information. So the last big topic that I will cover today is business events. Here I will basically showcase three scenarios, the business events as such, and on the extensibility side, I will demo the derived events and the local events. So there is a little extra slide that Marcel has prepared, and to indicate what I'm going to present here. So we make use, so we have two boxes prepared. On the left-hand side, that's an ABAP box. On the right-hand side, that's also an ABAP box. There's my mouse. And in the middle, we have on the BTP the SAP event mesh, and that is, we send an event from the first system, and via the event mesh, it is then sent forward or consumed in that second system. And this indicates a side-by-side extension, for instance. The scenario is like that. You have for instance, you could have a sales order, a standard sales order, SAP standard object that defines certain events, and you make use of that event, and in your own environment, you have your own implementation and making use of that event in the sense, that you create some purchase requisition or some additional subsequent document out of this event. And this is what I will showcase now. And so I switch back to the RDT to quickly show you what we have prepared here. I will close these screens. So the event is being emitted or sent by a more or less standard BO. We use the flight reference scenario here that in our team that we implement and provide in our team. We assume now that this is a standard business object coming from SAP, and this standard business object defines an event. The event is travel accepted. That means in a travel instance, when the user presses the accept button, that then this event is issued. And the event has a parameter. The parameter is an abstract entity, and we see here, if we click, that this has a certain structure. So this means whenever this event is triggered, these 5 fields are sent or passed on into this event. We have an event binding. Oh, that was the wrong click. This event binding exposes this event from this source system. Yeah, so this Y08 box that we see here is the source system, and that is by this event binding is sending then this event to the event mesh, and then everybody could subscribe to this event and listen to it and perform activities on top of that. And that's what is happening here in that lower system, Y11. And there we have an event consumption. But before we jump into this, let me quickly, first of all, refresh this screen so that I don't get a timeout. And this here as well. So on the emitting system, so the sending system Y08, we have a configuration in the event binding where we bind this and basically link this to a certain topic, and this is then being sent to the event mesh. And on the consuming system, we have a similar thing. So on the channel binding here, we have an inbound topic and a subscription. That inbound topic is also referring to this travel accepted event. And with that, we can then go to the target system. So as said, Y08 is the sending system and Y11 is the receiving system. And here we have a so-called event consumption model that is can be created using the tooling here. So you just create a new service event consumption model, and then based on the meta information of that event, you you generate artifacts like CDS views and more importantly a handler class that is then being triggered when this event arrives. And this I've done here as well. So this is the handler class, and this is very, very simple. Of course, it just receives the data, the incoming event, just showcasing here. So it's a similar structure as before, and then performs a modify on the local database table. So what is happening here is simply I'm retrieving the data and storing it in a local database, and that's it. So it's not too fancy, but of course you can imagine that based on you can implement your own code. You're of course flexible in implementing then whatever you want, like triggering some post processes, creating additional artifacts, instances, whatsoever. So let's quickly take a look at the current records here. So my colleagues in Bangalore are also using the system and the setup. So they have also created one or the other record here. And now I need to quickly send an event. This I've prepared here. So quickly refresh that I don't have a timeout, and I need to be a bit faster, otherwise I will run out of time. So I will just take this one and do accept. So this is the event. So that's the action that will then trigger the event. And based on this event, this is now being sent. It takes approximately 10-15 seconds. So from that one box, sending it to the event mesh, and then to retrieve it on the other side. So then let's quickly refresh here. And now it's the interesting part. Oh, it's already arrived. You see 4115. It has arrived here. So this is now being captured. And you see this was issued in Y08 and has received, and I've received it in Y11. So I need to speed up. What is missing? Next thing is the derived events. This I can explain very quickly, I guess. Derived events come into play when you want to make use of a standard event, like here, as explained. So I have this standard event defined here in the behavior definition of that standard BO. And you say, basically, the use case is, oh, I love this event, but I need additional parameters. And these additional parameters you could have provided in a way that you say, okay, I implement now an extension, and this extension is defining the missing parameters in the sense that I have a CDS view here. This CDS view defines the additional properties that I want to see. So you remember there were only 5, I guess, that were by default there. And you kind of define the ones that you want to have. And then as a behavior definition extension, you have your new event. And this is technically then really a new event with that new structure here, it's then makes use of the default event, travel accepted, and exposes this as a new event, and then it can be consumed like we did before. Yeah, and here you see that this was now the enhanced structure with the more fields. So, and the last one, very quickly, is the one for local events, and that means you not always have to consume the event outside in a different box via the event mesh, but you can also register a local event handler class that picks up the event that has been issued and triggered. And in a local event handler class like this one here, we see that it's implemented very similar to a behavior pool, but it's not for behavior of, but for events of. And in this case, I have the local types in implementation, and I make use of this travel accepted event and have my local implementation. And this local implementation basically fetches some additional data and then sends an email to my email account. And we see, if I now open my email inbox, that yes, here is a new email that has arrived. And this is the 4115, the one that I issued before. So yeah, you see that you have basically quite a number of capabilities doing event handling either via the event mesh or even as local events. And with that, I would like to thank you for your participation and your time. And I think now we move on with questions and answers. Live Q&A. So, thank you, Kuta Slimani, for the first question that I will take. When developing a side-by-side application, where is it stored and deployed? Does BTP shares the same resources with S4HANA system and HANA-DB? So the side-by-side application, of course, needs to reside at some location. I mean, if you have the application developed in your BTP ABAP environment, then this is the place where you deploy it. Yeah. So of course it depends where you have the coding residing, but yeah, typical or classical side-by-side extension use case, like I showed with this event handling here, would be that you store it then in your SAP BTP ABAP environment, deploy the application there, and then the logic and everything, sits basically there. Okay, then we have a number of additional questions. I take the one with a vote. Ian Stubbings, are there any major feature differences between RAP and CAP that would steer developers skilled in both to use RAP, EA, better analytical data modeling? Yeah, that's hard to answer because I'm not a CAP expert and I would not compare them and kind of rate what is better, what is worse. I think it depends really on the use case, on your capabilities. So what's about your experience? So if you have Java experience, Node development experience, then CAP might be better because you're simply faster in implementing things. I'm an ABAP guy. Of course, I would rather choose the ABAP environment, as said, based on my knowledge and my home turf. So therefore, I think CDS modeling-wise, things should be doable. And you see also, referring to the roadmap that I mentioned, you can then check for maybe potentially missing capabilities when they will come, and to see and plan things accordingly. So next question, we have a little time left. Yes, 2 votes. Madhushmita Satapati. When we have a requirement to build a report, as ABAP on cloud doesn't support SA8038 report program, how we can achieve? Yeah, that's a very good question. We get this frequently. You're right. I mean, in the cloud, you cannot have reports anymore in the sense, and you translate them into Fiori applications. We have done some analysis and checked for the patterns that are used. So this Fiori style pattern where you have some list report and then object page pattern with certain potentially quick actions is more or less should ideally be the standard answer to that. So we hope that most of the use cases can be captured with this approach. But of course, maybe in certain cases even handcrafted UIs might be necessary. Talking and consuming certain OData services for this one are then required. Yeah, so it really depends then on the use case. Yeah. And then, this one, okay. DS is asking a question. This draft system per field means you can maintain with more than one person and an entity as long as you pick out different fields. Seems quite risky to me. Now it's basically fully controlled. So like I said, if you have multiple people working on, let's say, an Excel sheet or so, and then you have also a certain cell that is then locked by a person that is editing that particular field. And of course, you also decide which one you want to invite. So it's not by default default that everybody can edit it. So you invite the people, you might even chat with them in parallel and say, hey, can you help me with this material master document? I have difficulties to maintain one or the other field. And then you could also kind of sync with that person. But even independent of that, yeah, you work on this like you would type everything in also yourself in a respective field. Yeah. Good, yeah, there's no more questions on the screen. So therefore, I would like to thank you for listening. Thanks also to the team in the background, the colleagues answering the questions, and also all the team, the colleagues that have prepared for this demo and this event. Thank you. Bye.